Okay. So just to begin with, a brief overview about Efficiency Nova Scotia. Many of you probably are aware who we are. We're a nonprofit entity in Nova Scotia responsible for delivering energy efficiency services. We've been ranked #1 in Canada for energy efficiency programs as a province. It adds up to quite a bit. So our programs alone are saving more than $180 million annually in the province now. And that has also resulted in more than 1 million tons of CO2 being avoided annually in the province as a result of the fact that the programs have now saved 11% of the overall energy use of what otherwise would have been used. So we have programs for homeowners, renters, commercial businesses, right up to industrial facilities. As I mentioned, I work with municipalities and provincial government as well. So everyone in the province pretty well is eligible for our programs. Primarily for businesses, our rebates and incentives are geared towards electricity reductions. But we're always happy to offer advice for people to save any type of fuel as well. For homeowners, we have programs available to save non-electric fuels too. So just to start with, this diagram is more geared towards a house, but the underlying message is the same for a building. And what I want to show is just that there's lots of interventions you can take in a building. From very simple things like light bulbs right up to solar PV, whole building retrofits. And the most effective and affordable things you can do for a building is to stop heat loss through insulation and air sealing. As you see here, step 1, air sealing. So, your heating and cooling system can be really, really efficient. But if you are letting all that heat leak out of your building, you're still going to be wasting a lot of energy. So windows and doors are something that are often brought up, especially by homeowners, right? If you put your hand up to a window pane, you're going to feel that it's very cold generally when it's cold outside. And while there is often drafts around windows and doors, actually switching out the windows themselves isn't often the best bang for your buck when it comes to an energy retrofit, because window panes, an existing window probably has an R value of about 2. And if you go and buy a really ultra efficient, low argon, all this type of stuff window, you're probably getting about double the R value, maybe R4, R5 at the upper end. But you compare that to an attic where oftentimes in a house, say, it might have R20 insulation and you're bringing that up to R50. So the impact can be very massive doing insulation and air sealing, filling holes around windows and gaps in your foundation compared to what you're going to achieve by switching out windows. And I'll note that renewables, which are the last step on here, are listed last. So that's solar generally for houses and buildings. Solar PV or photovoltaics can definitely make sense in a residential setting because they have higher electric costs. Generally, you're paying a higher rate. We are also starting to see cases in commercial rates where it can make sense as well. However, you have to consider the setup as you're building and how it will be installed. So if there's one electric meter and you've got electric heat in the building, you're paying all the power, great. There's probably a decent business case to be looking at there. But if every unit's separately metered, you're heated with oil, it may be difficult to find enough energy savings to justify the cost. So we are seeing solar prices coming down quite a bit now, but it isn't generally what we would recommend as your first step. So at the low end of the commitment spectrum, we have what's called the efficient product installation service. So this is a completely free program available to all homes and rental units in the province. And landlords and tenants are eligible for LED lights, replacing incandescent lights. So the company will come in, switch out all your incandescent lights, put in LEDs for free. Not every single type of light is eligible, but most of the common ones. Efficient shower heads and faucet aerators, so that reduces your water heating costs. Smart power bars for audiovisual systems. Hot water tank wraps and pipe insulation if there's individual hot water tanks. Sometimes now we are providing draft proofing around windows as well, so they do have some caulking available. And depending on the configuration, the unit may also qualify for a smart thermostat. So these are fairly small individual retrofits, but they can add up to quite a bit. Definitely can save hundreds of dollars per year for the tenants by having these small retrofits in place. We have a fantastic program that just came out last year. It's called Affordable Multifamily Retrofits, and it offers rebates of up to 80% of energy saving upgrades for eligible rental properties in cooperatives. So this is meant towards people who provide affordable housing, and I'll explain what that means in a minute. And we can actually also provide up to 100% of the costs for people that are providing rent-free housing, so shelters and transition houses. So we'll perform a no-cost energy audit of those buildings to identify the primary energy-saving upgrades for the property and determine what the rebates are that you'd be eligible for. And we'll help cover the expense of the upgrades, which could include lighting, heating, water heating, window and door replacement, insulation. So basically everything we covered at the outset. So to be eligible for this program, first of all, it has to be a building with 4 or more units. And if it's a rooming house, co-op, or affordable rental, it would have to have average rents in the entire building would have to meet 80% of what CMHC deems the average rental rate for the area. So for example, in Halifax, a 1-bedroom unit without utilities included would have rent at $803 monthly as the average, or less to qualify for this program. Whereas in Yarmouth, the same unit would need to have a rental rate of $562 monthly. To participate, landlords also need to agree to certain conditions, including keeping rental increases limited. So you are allowed to increase the rent, but there's a set amount you can do that per year. If you're renting in buildings if you provide rentals in units, buildings with fewer than 4 units, you may be able to participate in our home energy assessment program instead, depending on the configuration of those units as well, which provides rebates of up to $5,000 per unit. Small business energy solutions is also available for landlords. So this would be for buildings where the overall energy usage is less than 350,000 kilowatt hours of electricity annually. That adds up to roughly $3,500 a month for the full building. And we can provide rebates on a number of things through this program. Generally, you'd be eligible for a free energy audit here as well. They do a qualification process to see if an audit would be provided. And basically they factor in whether or not there's several opportunities, or if ultimately all you have available in the building is lighting, they probably don't need to send an auditor out. That's something you can handle yourself. So there's still rebates available in those cases, but they wouldn't have an audit done on the building. We also, on top of the rebates that are available, are able to offer 24 months of interest-free financing on the power bill for these upgrades as well. And I'll talk about what some of those upgrades are. But also for a limited time, right now we have an extra bonus in this program, where we're increasing the incentives until the end of this year for linear replacement lights. So that's your tube lights like T8, T12 tape lights, any outdoor lighting, case or sign lighting, and commercial heating, including heat pumps. So that's available till December 31st of 2020. So the solutions listed here are some of the things you can get through Small Business Energy Solutions through that program, but it's also eligible even if your building is over that amount. The rebate amount may change depending on whether you qualify as a small business or small rental or a larger one. So we do have rebates on products such as commercial lights, heating, laundry, pumping, solar, variable frequency drives, and water heating. So as an example, if you put in a ductless mini split, we would ensure, first of all, that it's a cold climate heat pump. So it meets the criteria set out by the Northeast Energy Partnership. So they define what is a cold climate heat pump, what performance it needs to have. And if it meets that criteria, it would be eligible for $200 per ton for a heat pump. And then variable frequency drive is something we've seen a lot of landlords install on rooftop units. So for example, if your makeup air unit didn't have a variable frequency drive, installing one allows you, instead of the motor going all the way on or all the way off, it allows it to come on at 60% or 70%, whatever's needed at that time. And that could be rebated at $100 roughly per horsepower of the motor. So a 10 horsepower motor, you could get up to $1,000 towards the variable frequency drive. So, lots of different options available. Some of the lighting solutions especially, you're able to get rebates right at the distributor level. So if you go into Rexel or Bird or any of the places you would typically buy your light bulbs from, as a business, the rebates are available right at the counter there. Other ones, especially outdoor lighting or larger buildings that might have specialty lighting, you have to apply to get the rebate. If you are a smaller rental unit and qualify for small business, you need to get that pre-approved before you purchase it, and that gets you eligible for higher rebate amounts. Otherwise, you can apply up to 90 days after the install. We always recommend people pre-approve their purchases because A, you're guaranteed to get a rebate then, and B, if you're eligible, you get higher incentive amounts. But you can do it up to 90 days after as well. So some other tips, not necessarily something we provide rebates or incentives on. We've talked about air leaks and insulation already. When we're talking about air leaks, one of the things you want to look for is visible cracks or drafts you can feel around windows, doors, and electrical outlets, and gaps along floor edges or places where pipes, sewage pipes, or wiring might come into your building. On the exterior of your building, you often would look for where you might have brick and wood coming together or stone and wood. This sometimes allows a gap where air can get into your building. Especially in Nova Scotia, we've got older building stock, additions that have been built over time. One thing you might want to look into is getting thermal imaging. There's some companies out there or some fairly inexpensive units you can rent or purchase. And during heating season especially, you can sometimes use those cameras to see where air is leaking out of your building. And that is something that some of our energy auditors are able to do as well. On insulation, you might want to check the insulation levels in the attic or the walls, and check whether your hot water tanks or pipes are insulated. And as we mentioned already, there's some opportunities for us to provide insulation on, especially hot water tanks and hot water pipes for electrically heated buildings. And where I said, you know, we don't necessarily provide rebates or incentives on some of those things, we do have an efficiency trade network where you can find professionals to do these types of energy efficiency improvements for you. So the members of our trade network are professionals in a variety of areas, including contractors, installation installers, heating system installers, electricians, and more. So it's a fairly simple tool you can find right on our website. You put in what part of the province you are and what you're looking to do, and it'll provide you with a list of contractors that do energy efficiency work. We now, I believe there's in the neighborhood of 1,400 people working in the energy efficiency industry in Nova Scotia now, so it's been very successful. So that's all I had for a presentation. Thanks for listening to me for a few minutes. I'll open it up to yourselves for any questions you may have, and happy to answer those. You're also able to follow up with me afterwards if you have any questions. You can email into us or myself personally at kkeys, K-E-Y-S, at efficiencyns.ca. Thanks. Anybody have any questions? Oh, there's something in the chat. Solar incentive. Good question. Sorry about that. So solar is, for solar PV, we have to take it on a case-by-case basis right now. So for homeowners, we have our Solar Homes program available that provides rebates at 60 cents per watt. Per installed watt of solar. That is available through government funding that was provided only for residential customers in the province. We primarily, our funding comes from Nova Scotia Power to reduce the amount of electricity. We have a custom program available for any businesses or institutions in the province. And to meet the qualifications of that program, you need to meet a 15-year overall project payback. So solar can, in some cases, meet that, but generally what we would see is solar combined with other things you may be doing anyway. And that is what, if you're doing a larger project, and so we'd have to take a look at the individual project, what was being done, and then we could offer you a custom rebate on that. It wouldn't be as high as 60 cents per watt. It may be in the neighborhood of 10 to 15% of the total project costs for solar. All right. Well, I think I'll wrap it up there, and feel free to reach out to myself directly, or feel free to call into Efficiency Nova Scotia if any questions crop up in the future, and they can connect you with me. Thanks very much, and have a great day.